Hello, YouTube. I grew from one listing to 111 in 2 years. And a major reason for that success was I knew how to optimize Airbnb listings. Automation is the second strength I have. So, in this video, I'm going to show you optimization, and my following video is going to be around how to automate your listing. Automation is important, but without an optimized listing, you're not going to get anywhere. Right. So the reason is, why do we need to optimize a listing? It's a human nature. Even when you are searching something on Google, you don't go beyond first two pages of the search results. More we go beyond the first two pages, we feel insecure. That is why the users, when they are booking on Airbnb, they always try to book something from the first page. If they can't find something suitable on the first page, they go to the second page of the search result, but they don't go beyond the second page, most of the users. And that is why it is so important to appear on the first two pages of the search result. And if you are there, you're booked, you're 80% booked. That is half of the job done. And the second half is obviously looking after the guests and getting good reviews. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through a highly optimized listing. This was a listing I created a couple of months ago. It is performing brilliantly apart from the coronavirus pandemic, which is going on at the moment, which is kind of washed out all the bookings because Airbnb has blocked all the bookings in this area for now. So ignoring that fact, this is how you can optimize your listing. I'm going to go through each section and I'm going to tell you what are the things which are important, how you should be setting things up, what are the settings, what is the impact if you choose one option over the other. So it is going to be a detailed review of a listing. I hope it will be very useful to you. And before I jump into showing you the listing, let me tell you what is an Airbnb SEO, which is search engine optimization. So, in simple words, Airbnb has thousands of listings to show in an area. How do they choose which one appears on the first page or the second page or the third page subsequently? So they use machines, they use algorithms to identify what is suitable for a specific user. For example, if I'm looking for something in London, they're obviously going to start showing me what is available. So the first filter they can do is what is available for those dates I'm looking for, whether it matches the criteria I've chosen, number of guests, if I'm looking for a parking, if I'm looking for a Wi-Fi, all those things. After that, Airbnb search engine still ends up with thousands of listings to choose from. Now, that is where the clever algorithm comes in place. So every time someone comes on Airbnb, they when you first list a property on Airbnb, they start showing it randomly out of order to see how the user response is. It is still a machine. They can't see how well you've written the listing or how beautiful your photos are. It is a machine. It can't figure out. But they use signals which they receive from users. For example, they track how many times your listing was displayed to a user, and out of 100 times it was displayed to a user, how many times a user clicked on your listing. That is called click through rate, CTR, in optimization terms. That shows to Airbnb, that gives a signal to Airbnb that this is a listing which is highly attractive if you have a high CTR rate, and the profile image you're using is attractive to people. That is first criteria they use. The second criteria they use is, once a user goes in, how much time he spends before he books it. That is the second criteria. they're tracking the time a user spends looking at your listing, and if he goes back and looks at another listing, that is a -1 in your search engine ranking or whatever system they're using. So everything we're gonna do today in the walkthrough, I'm gonna show you it is around increasing the click-through rate. It is about making the user book. It is about giving them the precise information they are looking for. So on my screen here is the listing I created a couple of months ago. So I'm going to go through each section. I hope you can see my screen. So the first one is the photos on Airbnb. The most important thing in photos is obviously they have to look nice. And I don't recommend to choose the best Airbnb photographer you can find in the town, because you don't want the place to look amazing in photos, because they bring all the professional lights, they take amazing photos, but when the user comes in, when the guest walks into the property, they don't have those lights there and they are disappointed. So try and be aware that you don't want a user, the guest, to come with sky high expectations. Try and give them a realistic picture of what it is like. What I always use is, I find student photographers, they don't cost that much. Also, then they do the job, they do just the job, they don't give you an out of the world result, which we don't really want, but they still need to be nice and clean. Make sure your property is tidied up, all the beds are made properly, the toilet seat is closed when he's taking the photographs. Open all the windows, get as much as plenty of sunlight you can in the property when they're taking the picture. The second thing is, when you're uploading the images, because it is the search engine of Airbnb, it is still a machine. It cannot see whether a photo is beautiful or not, but it can see the resolution of the photo that is being uploaded. So when you're getting photos from your photographer, make sure you do not transmit them via a messenger like a WhatsApp or something. Try to get the highest possible resolution. And resolution you can, which is, in simple terms, it is a file size. So try to get the biggest file size of your images and upload them on Airbnb. That is extremely important. As soon as you upload good size images, you will see a jump in your search ranking. And I will do a separate tutorial on how you can find your search ranking. There are a couple of options available on internet which you can use. Some are free, some are not, to see where your property ranks on Airbnb for different search results. Right, so coming back to this, high resolution images is extremely important. Try to put the main image as the most attractive image you've got, because that is the first thing a user is going to see. If they don't find the thumbnail image attractive, they're not going to come into your listing. So try and put an extremely attractive image, whichever you have out of the set. Second thing is, let me show you, in fact. So you need to know how a listing looks to a user. Airbnb keeps changing it all the time, but recently they've made an update, and you will see the first 5 images are displayed on the page like this. So these are the 5 images you have at the top of the stack on your Airbnb listing. So try and make sure you have the best 5 images, and don't choose the same place. So if you have one room of the living room, don't put all 5 living room images. Try and bring the best 5 images of each area guest is going to be able to access. The next thing, most important thing, is it is important for people to see how the property looks from outside, which is the street view of the building. It gives them a sense of security. They get to know what the areas look like, because Interior photographs, they do tell a story, but they tell half the story. People traveling with families, they are extremely cautious about where they're going to be staying. They don't want to stay in a shady area. So putting a street view of the building is extremely important. The third thing is, it's not hugely important, but if you can try and add captions to each image, that doesn't really increase your search ranking, but it helps a user to understand if you have multiple bathrooms. They need to know, well, how many bathrooms you've got, which bathroom is this. So it does help the user. So indirectly, it impacts your the user's behavior on your listing. One more thing I've seen, Airbnb has recently added an edit option. So if you look here, or if you go into any image on Airbnb, you will see this edit button here. You click on the edit and it gives you, so if you have an image which just doesn't look right, you don't have the original image anymore, you can go in here and do some adjustments to the photograph. It has a clever filter in between. So if you go, let me just go back and show you. So if you go to adjust, there is an Airbnb filter. It does some good stuff to the photo. So as soon as you flick it brings some more light. It exposes the image a bit more. I think that is a cool feature. If you've got time, try and do that with all your images if possible. It does bring some life to photos. Right, so that is about the images. Uh, Rooms and spaces is the next section. So let me show you. Make sure your rooms and spaces accurately shows what the area is going to be, how the place is set up like. Few things I've seen people miss very frequently is when you go in there, if you see the sleeping arrangement is very important. You need to have the correct bed size mentioned in here. So if you have a bedroom, go in there, click on edit, and that displays what kind of bed you've got. So make sure you have the correct size bed mentioned there, because if the guest doesn't see a bed in your bedroom, it is going to impact the number of beds in your property, and it is eventually going to impact your search engine ranking because you have something which you're not showing there, and so on. If you have an ensuite bathroom along with the bedroom, make sure this is checked. And the similar thing, you can just go through all these sections, make sure you have highlighted the kind of beds in each bedroom, bathrooms, attach photos everywhere as much as you can. Airbnb is not using this data at the moment to display anywhere to the user. This is still visible to us hosts, but I believe at some point in the future they're going to bring something really clever which is going to make it easy for the guest to visualize how your property is. So putting into these buckets of each room, it does help. It is going to help at some point. If the property is shared with someone, if you have a shared toilet, make sure you share it. You click the shared button, and at the bottom of the page, you will see all these. You can mark who is going to be sharing the areas which you have marked are being shared with someone. Also, click at the top of this. I forgot. Click at the top of this, edit rooms and spaces. Make sure you have added all the spaces you have in the property. It is hugely important because try and add as much as you can areas to your property. It is important because if you have something, why not put it there? So that's one thing. The next one is amenities in your properties. Try and tick as much as you can. I mean, not just for the sake of ticking, but in terms of try and provide as many things as you can in this list, because each box you check, Airbnb gives you somewhere in their search engine ranking +1. So you gain a point every time you click one property, one amenity, because it just gives them an indication that you have so many things in your property. So common is the first option. Additional is the second option. Make sure you have, they keep adding few things here and they keep taking things off. So I'm pretty sure they added a rubbish bin here last month, but now it's gone. But they keep adding things and to keep taking things off. So try and do a random check every month or so and try and come back and see if they've added a few more options for you to check. And if you're the only one who's checked in your area, it is going to give you a greater advantage. So yeah, try and click as much as you can what is relevant to your property. Family, if you have family things, just check all the things you can. In logistics, luggage drop off allowed, long term stays allowed. I believe you should check this always. Home safety. All these four amenities are hugely important. They don't cost much, but it gives a comfort to the guest that you are serious about your safety, the guest safety, and they don't cost much, and they probably have the biggest impact. If you are if you are in a position to buy these things, I would say just get these items. It is good for the safety of your guest as well. If something goes wrong, it is going to save your back. Right. So fire extinguisher. Make sure you mention where the fire extinguisher is, like in the kitchen, and fire alarm in the hallway. Gas shuttle valve. So if you have a gas in the property, make sure, because in emergency, guests would want to rush and stop the gas flow into the property. Medical, make sure you give all the local emergency numbers. And then exit instructions, I always make sure I write exit instructions. So I'm going to write exit through the front gate, from the front door, via the stairs to the street level. Please do not take left in case of fire. Yeah. And then not many people have seen this. So at the bottom, it is a preview and print. So as soon as you click this option, it is going to bring all this important information which you can print, and Airbnb suggests that you stick it somewhere in your property. So it didn't pop that thing up. Let me just try and save. Why didn't? Maybe it's broken. It is not. It should show me preview and print. It should show me the safety guard. No. So there you go. Airbnb is broken again, but it displays you a pink sheet which has the emergency numbers, where the gas shut-off valve is, where is the fire alarm, which the guest can find handy. Location, mark location if you are in one of these four areas. So going back to the listing again, accessibility. If your property is accessible, yes, make sure it is. You highlight everything which is accessible to the guest. It does serve an important section of guest. It is definitely going to bring you a number of bookings in the long term. So try and mark as many items you can. They keep adding lots of new stuff to this. Back garden, dining area. How does the dining area look like? Whether it is accessible or not. So it is quite self-explanatory. Try and add as much as you can. Right. So now coming to the second most section after the photos is the title and description. So in title and description, it serves multiple purposes. But before that, let me show you this internal name. This is quite random. What I've seen, Airbnb displays it on some listings. On some listings, it doesn't. I've never been able to figure out the criteria they use to show this, but it is quite handy if you're managing multiple properties. You can keep an internal name which is not visible to the guest, and it is only accessible to you, and it comes quite handy when it comes to when you receive a booking. You can see which property it is for, because you have an internal name rather than the title of the listing, which can be quite confusing if you have multiple properties. Right, so moving on, the listing title. It is hugely important that the title is attractive. It doesn't give the obvious information to the guest. Like, I could have put luxury family apartment in London. Using the word London doesn't help because the user knows where they're searching. Or putting something like 3-bedroom luxury apartment, I could have put. That doesn't help again because the user knows, they're filtered on it. They know it is a 3-bedroom apartment. So try and put something which is gonna make the user think and click on your listing. Surprise, add a element of surprise for the user. So if they are looking at a luxury family apartment near Buckingham Palace with parking, that gives them something like, wow, I'm looking at something near Buckingham Palace, and it's a luxury. So add those kind of words. Try and avoid obvious words, because this is a premium space, and this is the second thing a user is going to look at after your photographs. So try and make it attractive. Try and use all the space available here. It is a 50 character limit, but try and use as much as you can. The second part is listing description. So I've seen people adding, a long paragraph of, what their perspective of the property is. They add things like plenty of sunshine, and this has this kind of vibes. It gives you positive energy, etc., etc. It doesn't really help anyone. Try to be, because listing description is the third thing which the user is going to look at after they come to your listing. So make sure this is to the point. It is factual. Don't give any bullshit in this. Try and give them what they're going to get in this property. So for example, in this, you will see the first thing, because this is the biggest selling point for me in this property. I've written, it is 6 minutes away from here, 10 minutes away from here, 15 minutes away from here. This is hugely important, I know, because in London, when someone is coming and they're looking at a central London property, they want to know how far it is from all these different places. And then you are writing stuff like, how far it is from the nearest tube station. And then you can say gym access, there is an allocated parking. So try to be factual, not try and give a right big paragraph with your perspective of what you think of the property. So that's what the listing description is. Try and use all the spaces, all the space Airbnb has given. After this, the space section, this is where, if you want, you can write a flowery story of what you think of the property is, everything. It is not hugely visible to the user, and by the time they reach this section, they've already made up their mind. Either they're going to choose your property or they're going to move on. So you can write all your detailed description in the space section. Usually it is, I just mentioned, things like fully equipped. It is kind of repeat information. It is kind of listing, adding the amenities, which I have mentioned in the other section as well. But more you write in the spaces and the other sections at the bottom of this page, the better it is, because it's just going to give more text to Airbnb search engine to chew and process. Right, so the next thing is guest access. Yeah, again, try and mention how many people are the property can accommodate, where they're going to sleep. Guest interaction is important, because you need to tell guests how you're going to interact with them. Do you live close by? Do you live in the property? Are you going to be around when they need it? Things like that. So it is quite important. So make sure you choose one of these three options and write a small note underneath it. Other things to note, yeah, just write whatever you think, but don't leave it blank. Don't leave any of these things blank. Write as much as you can. Again, it is not hugely important, but the more you write, the better it is, and keep it relevant. So that's it. In the title and description, one more thing which people miss is add language. Although Airbnb does a translation of the property into different languages, if a user is looking at it from China, it is going to display it to them in Chinese. But they use Google Translator, which can be quite off the rails. So make sure if you have people coming to your area from a specific region in the world, and if they speak a different language, make sure you add that language, all the target languages, in your terms, rather than Airbnb trying to translate it using Google Translator. So when you go in add language, let's see, for example, let's choose Dutch. Deutsch, sorry. And then once you're in there, make sure, because the title, even even though the Airbnb uses Google Translate, but it still doesn't translate the title, because title, when it is translated in different languages, it can go beyond that 50 character limit. So make sure you mention your title in your own chosen language, with your knowledge of the language. It is not hugely important, but the more you can do on this add language part, it is better. Right, so the next section, it is the custom link. They've recently launched it. Not hugely important to you, but it's better to keep a link if it comes handy when it comes to sharing it, if you don't have many properties. Right, the next one is property and guest. Go in there, make sure the property type is correct. A lot of times I've seen people have ignored this field altogether. They have not checked. It is a beautiful bungalow, but they have chosen just a regular flat, and it is misleading, and you're kind of undermining the property. You're not selling it well enough. You're not telling what it is. Make sure the property section is correct and the number of guests are correct. If it is a space which you completely all the time rent on Airbnb, mention it here. It is primarily set for guests. There isn't much to do apart from this in this section. The next one is a location. So about 2 years back, they added this option where you can choose to show specific location of your property, or you can just show the general area of your property. So in some areas where it is quite sensitive, you don't really want to give an obvious information where this property is located, which is listed on Airbnb. You can choose general location, but if there is no restriction, if there is no privacy to be compromised, you can just feel free to choose a specific location if if the location of your property is worth showing to the user. Try to choose the specific location, what I mean to say. In directions, just mention if you want to write detailed travel directions, but I usually just mention detailed check-in directions will be shared 7 days before your arrival. So that's it about the directions, and then the next one is the Wi-Fi, but it is just not the Wi-Fi. There is a hugely important thing in this. The first section you see, and people quite often miss this section, is check-in instructions. So this is where you tell how the user is going to check. So as you click on this edit button, it gives you these four options, whether there is a smart lock in the property, there is a keypad, lockbox, building staff. So choose the most appropriate option and then click save. And this is going to be displayed to the user when they're looking at the listing. This is probably the third thing. I wish I could show you. It is going to be the third thing where they can say this property has self check-in, or the host meets you, or there is a lockbox. It's quite important. Mention your Wi-Fi username and password, because don't try and share it separately with the guest, because when you populate the network name and the password here, Airbnb makes it very accessible to the user. When they come to the property, it automatically shows them a pop-up saying it looks like you are at the property. Here is a username and password for the network if you want to connect. So make sure you populate the username and password on the listing. House manual, I try and share house manual separately. So here I just say happy to answer any queries you may want. Right, so guidebook not hugely important. Airbnb is kind of misleading the guest at the moment. No matter what you write in your guidebook, they're still busy trying to push Airbnb experiences. So your guidebook is never going to be in a prominent place for the guest to look at. They're going to try and push and sell the local experiences on Airbnb people are offering. So not hugely important, but if you've got time, try and create a guidebook. I will do a separate tutorial on how you can create an efficient guidebook. Going into the booking settings, we can ignore the first section. This is the coronavirus initiative Airbnb has taken to promote COVID-19 responders and ease for them to book. Instant booking. So instant booking is quite important. It is one of the major factors. Airbnb wants you to keep it on. They don't want you to turn it off. But if you want, you can turn it off. You're going to be penalized. They even when you turn it off, they give you enough warning saying, "Look, your ranking is going to be impacted." I believe you should try and keep instant booking on as much as you can, and you can get away with cancellations if someone books it and you are not comfortable with that. You can get away with 3 cancellations in a year, penalty free. So they won't penalize you financially. They won't penalize you for ranking. So I would say try and keep instant booking on in the beginning if you're new to Airbnb, and you can always switch it off later on if it doesn't work or if it bothers you a lot. On top of the instant booking, you can add a few more conditions. So if you want to say, yeah, that's fine, I will accept instant bookings, but I want them to go through these different options. So you can choose a profile photo. The guest, before they can instantly book your property, they need to upload a profile photo. I don't know why people think why Airbnb thinks it makes a difference, because if I'm booking 9 months down the line, I can put a photo of someone else today when I'm booking it, and you will accept me. And 9 months later, when I'm due to come, I'll change the photo to someone else. It doesn't really, you know what I mean? It doesn't really protect you against anything. One thing which is quite useful is you can add a government issued ID, which you can check if you want extra security and enabling instant booking. This makes sure that before someone can book your property instantly, they need to have verified their government ID with Airbnb. A recommendation from other hosts, it is not really a good idea. What I've seen is a lot of users, about 95% of the people booking my properties, they are new to Airbnb or they've not traveled. So this recommendation from other guests is probably going to block the biggest chunk of people booking your property instantly. And then the last section is pre-booking message. This is going to be the final message when someone tries to book your property. This is going to be a pop-up on the screen to them saying, look, you can write any message here if you want. What I usually suggest is you can write things like, please share the purpose of your trip and who you are coming with. And you can, so the guest can see what is important to you and respond to this when they're booking your property. So that's this section. I'm going to try and rush through. I don't want this to be a 2-hour long session. House rules is where you can mention if it is suitable for children, if it is suitable for infants, if you allow pets. I recommend, if you can, try and allow pets. It is definitely going to get you plenty of bookings over a year. A lot of people do travel with their pets. They are comparatively, they have more budget for the travel if someone is traveling with a pet, and they're not going to be like 1 or 2 nights stay. People usually traveling with pets and kids, they usually try and book for at least 3 to 4 nights. So you will get longer stays. Smoking allowed. So if you allow smoking, that's fine. Parties and events. Additional rules, hugely important. You should write everything which you don't allow in the property, even if it is obvious, like, depending on which part of the world you are. Smoking, in some part of the world, smoking is quite obvious. People do smoke in homes all the time. So try and make things which are absolutely not acceptable in a property here. And when someone books it, Airbnb will display it on the screen, and they will have to accept these rules before they can proceed with the booking. And when something goes wrong later on, Airbnb is going to refer to these additional rules in your property, and depending on whether you're asking for a compensation or some other action, these additional rules are going to be hugely important. So try and mention all which is important to you in the property. The next section is detailed guests must know about your home. Usually people have 1 or 2 steps to enter your property, and people avoid this. Try and mention if you have steps leading to the property. If it is not wheelchair accessible, mention that you have, something like 2 steps to enter the property. So, mention it there, because you don't want someone with disabilities who's unable to climb steps and then they come in there unable to walk into the property. That becomes a huge issue. If any of the other things which applies to you, try and mention that. Nothing else in this section. Policies is hugely important, and for some reason, I don't know why, Airbnb has for last 4 days, it is removing this information from all the listings, and I have had to go back in and mention. So policies, it's hugely important. Check-in start time, you should always mention your check-in start time. Otherwise people are going to start showing up at random times, and you'll have to accommodate them because you've not mentioned a check-in start time. Check-in end time, if you have a self check-in, mention flexible check-in time, because you don't really bother when they walk in, and you can just give them where the keys are. Checkout time is again hugely important, and people, when they're listing it for the first time, they usually miss it. Make sure you mention the checkout time. Try and keep the check-in time at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and checkout time at 11. This is the most optimum time which works in the industry. This is an industry standard check-in checkout time. If you keep early check-in time, if you keep too late checkout, it is going to be inconvenient to people, and less people are likely to find your property convenient for their stay. If you have an early checkout, it is going to be inconvenient again, because they don't want to rush through the breakfast and jump out of the property before the cleaners walk in. So try and keep it at 3 and 11. If you squeeze this time more than this 4-hour slot, you're going to be left with little or no time for the turnover to get the property ready for the next guest. So try and keep it at 3 and 11. Next section is the cancellation policy. Again, one of the most important section. You can choose the cancellation policy you want for your property. We are in difficult times, and because of coronavirus, that's why I have flexible or non-refundable. There are 3 policies. Practically, there are 3 policies Airbnb offers. One is strict, moderate, and flexible. They've added one flavor to each of these cancellation policy, which is the non-refundable option. Non-refundable option means the guest, if they want a non-refundable booking, they get 10% discount on top of your price. So yeah, make sure you choose the most appropriate. Try and choose moderate or flexible. If you choose strict, Airbnb is not going to like you, and it is going to impact your search ranking. So if you keep it flexible, Airbnb is going to love you. They're going to hug you. And if you keep moderate, they're still going to love you. But if you keep strict, they're not going to love you. Right, so that's it on the booking settings. Next, the pricing tab. The first option is smart pricing. Keep it turned on, off if you can. It is ridiculous. They're gonna just try and sell your prices too low. Keep your base price to a decent level, and then what I usually recommend is just go into the calendar and write your own prices rather than Airbnb trying to suggest you ridiculous prices. They're always low. Length of stay discount, it is always good to mention something. Don't leave it empty because it impacts your search ranking. Airbnb wants you to populate every field they have given you, and that gives them positive signal of about the host, how good the host you are. So try and mention something, 5 or 10% discount, if you even if you don't want to offer something huge. If you want to offer some specific discounts apart from weekly and monthly, you can choose a 2 nights discount or a 12 weeks discount, depending on what you want to do. It is not a hugely important, but setting up discount is. Early bird discount, similarly, you can add a discount for people who are trying to book like 6 months in advance or 1 year in advance. If you want to offer them 20% or something like that, you can do that. More discounts you add, more Airbnb is going to love you. So do it sensibly. Next section is the last minute discount. Again, the more you can offer discount, the better it is, and Airbnb is going to love you more. The next section is standard fees and charges. A cleaning fee is important. Try and keep the cleaning fee to the actual level. Do not try and make money in cleaning fee. That is the biggest mistake people do in the beginning, and they soon realize it. Uh, Keep cleaning fee to the actuals because everybody shortlists properties, and when they are looking at the final 3 properties, you don't want your cleaning fee to stand out. It is people are still coming from the hotel world to Airbnb world. They still can't get their head around why we're charging a cleaning fee. They don't realize this is someone's home. This is not a commercially organized group of people. This is still someone like you or me trying to run their livelihood with the property. So try and keep it to the minimum, whatever you pay for each turnover. And cleaning fee is just the cleaning fee. It basically means the labor charge you pay. If you have other expenses like linen and other stuff, you should add it here in the other standard fee. You will find a linen section in there. Just add your fee. So if you're paying £100 for each turnover, add 60 the labor charge here and add 40 in the other standard fee as the linen fee. Security deposit, always keep a security deposit. Doesn't really impact your search ranking. Don't give a ridiculous amount in this because it is just going to scare people off, because people still feel, what if you raise a claim against them which they've not broken? So still keep a little bit of security deposit. It just makes people more responsible when they're in the property. Extra guest, you can choose extra guest fee. You can say my property sleeps 6, but I'm going to charge £10 per night after 4 guests. It is not a good idea. Airbnb is not going to love you if you mention an extra guest. So try to include all your nightly price in the calendar for that date. Try and avoid extra guest fee completely altogether. You can add a special weekend pricing, but I suggest using dynamic pricing tools for running your Airbnb and setting up the prices. So weekend pricing isn't hugely important unless you're going to set the prices manually on your listing. Sharing settings, it is not hugely important. We can skip over that. It is still nothing you can do about. Other settings, non-refundable. This is a temporary coronavirus thing Airbnb has put. That's it. And the next section is this is the fourth and the last relevant section. I'm going to show you reservation preferences. You can show the preferences like how far in advance you want someone to book it. If you're a new host and if you always want a 2 days gap in between each booking, you can give it here. The second one is availability window. That shows that basically it's going to decide how far your calendar is open in the future. So if I've chosen 6 months in advance here, it is going to keep opening your calendar on a rolling basis. So that is where you can choose the reservation preferences. I'm going to do a separate video on this. The next section is the trip details, mention minimum stay and the maximum stay. And if you have additional requirements, if you want to override some specific dates. Check-in and check-out is important again. You should mention when you want them to check out and check in. You can see the information is duplicated here and under the booking settings. It is because Airbnb is still going through some changes, I believe. So for that purpose, we can just skip it because we have covered it already. Sync calendars is again important. If you're listing your property on multiple platforms, it is important. You can export your iCal calendar from here and copy and paste it into the other application, whether it is booking.com, HomeAway, or other items. So that's it for the availability tab. Regulations is not something which is going to impact your search ranking. Local taxes and laws, the co-host tab. So on the co-host tab, you can invite someone if you want them to give you a hand with Airbnb. Sorry about that. It is gonna. They will be able to access your listing, and they'll be able to respond to guests. They will be able to manage the property for you. They can create a listing for you. They can change or cancel a reservation. They can act on your behalf, basically, apart from looking at your financial details. I've done a separate a video on what a co-hosting is and how it impacts. Try and have a look at the other video I've done. That will be hugely important. So that is pretty much it. I believe, or if you create a listing like this, if you take my suggestions, it is going to give you a huge advantage over the competitors in your area. Believe me, this is all search engine optimization of Airbnb is. If you're paying someone, or if you're going through a course, nothing they're going to tell you. I grew up my business from 1 to 111 properties this week, just based on this strength. This optimization does work. Apart from the reviews, this is the most important thing. Reviews obviously make or break your listing. Try and keep your guests happy, try and meet their expectations, but that is a separate topic. So I will try and keep this video just to the optimization of a listing on Airbnb. I hope you enjoyed my videos. Please do like this video, subscribe to my channel. I really need subscribers at this time. I just started. I need your encouragement. Please do subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you very much for watching this session. Bye-bye. That's it.